Welcome at Dropsolid ETV. Today's webinar is about upgrading your Drupal 7 to 9. My name is Leen, I'm the CMO at Dropsolid, and I'm very happy to introduce today's speaker and Dropsolid CTO, Nick Veenhoff. Just before we start the webinar, a few housekeeping rules. As participants of the webinar, you are not able to speak up or unmute your microphones. But if you would have any questions during the presentation, do not hesitate and please use the chat function in the right-hand corner to put your questions. The presentation will take about 30 minutes and afterwards there will be plenty of time for some Q&A if there's any questions in the chat. And as some of you might have already seen, there's also a poll right next to the chat. And I invite you all to answer the poll so that because we are very curious about your plans in upgrading Drupal 7. And the question of the poll is therefore very simple. When are you planning to upgrade your Drupal 7 environment? So that's it from my side. With that, I would like to give the floor to Nick to start the webinar. Enjoy.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Nick Veenhoff. I'm the CTO at Dropsolid, and I'll be talking about upgrading Drupal 7 to Drupal 9, the technical approach. I've been part of the Drupal community for over 14 years now, and started with Drupal 6 and saw the evolution, but the evolution from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8 was very disruptive, if you will. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to the agenda for the webinar of today. Let's look at the current situation, look at the history and the future in terms of deprecations and things that have changed, will change, or will stay the same. We'll take a quick look in what's in Drupal 9. And I'll show you a little sneak peek of the future of what you see is what you get with Layout Builder in Drupal 9. And then we'll get into the practical part of preparing your Drupal 7 site for the upgrades, and then migrating away from Drupal 7 with some practical tips and also a demo of an actual Drupal 7 site with content in Chinese, English, French, Dutch. It's an actual client that I used for this case. So at least that we're not having a demo with some fake Drupal 7 to a fake Drupal 9. So stay tuned for that. Dropsolid itself exists for over 7 years with nonstop growth. We are in the product business, but also in consultancy towards Drupal services, but broader than that, also in the digital experience space with, for example, marketing automation and personalization. If you'd like to talk about that, happy to answer any questions, but that's not what it's about today. Yeah. Let's see about the current situation. The current situation started in 2011, and so then Drupal 7 was born. It was startup times. Everything was very exciting. What many of you might have forgotten is that PHP 5.6 was born after Drupal 7. So lots of things have changed. Drupal 7s today are still running on the latest version of PHP, or at least the latest 7 version of PHP. In 2015, Drupal 8 was born, and then PHP 7 was also born in 2015. Great times. But then from 16 to 19, we started to seek stability with those ecosystems. You can see Symfony 4 also got added, but we also needed to think about cleaning up. So PHP 5.6 was deprecated or no longer supported 2 years ago by now. If you still have your Drupal 7 site on PHP 5.6, I'm happy to know by the chat if you want to tell us. But also PHP 7.0, 7.1 is already officially out of the game. So by now, your Drupal 7 site should be upgraded, in theory, at least to PHP 7.3 or 7.4. Let's see into the future. So we're now 2020. Quite a interesting year, not just by technology, but also on the society. Not always very positive, but let's not talk about that. In 2020, Drupal 9 was also released. This was also an exciting time because it showed us the upgrade path from Drupal 8 to 9. Also, PHP 8 got released recently. And you can see there's a lot more red than non-red, which means that there's a lot more that was cleaned up or deprecated, is the correct software term, from 20 to 23. So you can maybe think, okay, this is a lot of work to keep my application on my website to the latest standards. And you can see in 2022, which has been extended by 1 year, before it used to be 21. In 2022, Drupal 7 will be no longer supported, which means that if there's a security issue that was found in Drupal 7, it will not be reported through official channels, nor will it be fixed. So you cannot really update through the regular means. So that's quite a big risk, and that's most likely why you're here. If I look at the poll, I see that many of you plan to upgrade in 21. If that becomes the practical reality, I'm really happy for you that you do this. But unfortunately, there's also cases where it's maybe not interesting to upgrade by that time, because maybe there's impact in the business, or maybe there's other reasons why you cannot move so quickly. Also, just upgrading Drupal 7 to Drupal 9, and we'll get there in a bit, might not just be the business reason that you're looking for. Usually, it also comes with a whole revamp of the digital business that you're trying to achieve online. Because of those reasons, Dropsolid decided to partner with the Drupal Association, and Dropsolid is able to offer Drupal 7 extended support with security patches using official channels until 25. Also, we'll talk about that more in detail later. Now, this seems very disruptive. It scares me. Will upgrading from Drupal 8 to 9 and 10 be just as disruptive? No. So from Drupal 8 to 9 is a lot easier, and from Drupal 9 to 10 is also a lot easier. How does this work? In Drupal 8, and since the few first versions of Drupal 8, it was already known in code. That's where it's written what kind of modules or code is going to be deprecated and will be removed in Drupal 9. You can see there's things that are not marked as deprecated. And in Drupal 9, those are not available, but everything that worked in Drupal 8 and that is not deprecated, like content types, views, most of the modules actually, are still working and functional in Drupal 9. The only thing that in the underlying layer changes is from Symfony 3 to Symfony 4. So if you work just with Drupal core or with the most supported modules, actually upgrading from Drupal 8 to 9 could be done in half a day. There's not even need to change your front-end theme. Those things stay the same, except for maybe a couple of little tweaks here and there. But that's also, if you need help, at Dropsolid can help you with those. So what's in Drupal 9? A short overview of what's in there. In Drupal 9, for those that haven't experimented much with Drupal 8 or the latest version of Drupal 8 or with Drupal 9, there's the layout builder. This allows you to create landing pages in the front end of the website so you can see what you're actually building, which is a very different way of building websites compared to Drupal 7, which also had only the backend and structure, and you couldn't really see what you were doing. Also has full support for multilingual. Now you don't have to install all these different kind of modules for the multilingual. Fully supported out of the box. Fuse is in there, but also, and this gives you a little overview of what the Dropsolid rocket ship distribution provides, has a cookie consent module out of the box. It works with Google Tag Manager, and we've deployed this for many customers. And as Dropsolid and as open as we are, everything that we did to get there is open source and available on Drupal.org. Important in this GDPR era. Drupal 9 is also API first, so it means that it's headless by default, but not necessarily only headless. It means that you can use the application as a headless application to get your content out there natively out of the box. And then also, it was built by High Performance. There are technologies in there that no other CMS that's out there can actually achieve by using the concept of specific caching technologies. If you want to know more about that, also happy to talk about that in detail, but that's not what we're here about. Some other summaries is mobile first. It has object-oriented programming. This is also a lot easier to recruit people because it's built on the Symfony framework and with the same paradigms. So people that have been doing Laravel or other frameworks in PHP will feel at home and at ease in Drupal 9. It has configuration management to easily go from your testing environment to your production environment or vice versa, while keeping your content intact. It's only the configuration changes that you move from one to the other. Very interesting and required if you're working with a team at such an application. And then the migration toolkit. That's what we're here for. It has support for Drupal 7 migrations into Drupal 9, but also has support for Microsoft SQL databases, for example, or specific files that could come from an SAP environment or other kind of data sources. We've used this to do continuous migrations or single migrations, depending on the needs of the application. And then also Composer 2, it's a very recent addition into Drupal 9. If you've been working with Drupal for a while, I'm sure, and certainly Drupal 8, I'm sure you've had already acknowledged that Composer is part of your toolkit. Composer 1 was fairly slow and very resource heavy. Composer 2 cuts this down to like 70 to 80% less resources, less memory necessary to achieve the same job. So your local development machine actually became more powerful and you'll be able to develop a lot faster using this technology. Drupal 9 also has content moderation, meaning that you have different workflows for different roles and workspaces to actually push different pieces of content at the same time out of the door for example, marketing campaigns. All of this is available out of the box with Drupal 9, and then some of this is added with the Dropsolid Rocket Ship installation profile, which is also fully open source. So this is free out there for you to use. Now, wanted to give you a sneak peek of what the future of the WYSIWYG with Layout Builder looks like, and then we'll dive into the migration. And let me see if I do this in full screen. Well, it's not full screen, but it's okay. I hope you can see this. What you're seeing is actually a content editing experience from a content manager or people that are actually adding content to specific sites. And this person is making a landing page. And he or she wants to make a landing page where there's an image on the left, some text on the right, some text below, etc. In Drupal 7, this was often solved with paragraphs, also in Drupal 8, but this was always done in the backend. You couldn't really see what you were doing, and this solution provides the solution to give you structured content with pre-made blocks while still staying in the front end. What you can see here is that I'm adding a little text block below the images. And then what we'll try to do is to shift that to another location and add some more content. It doesn't have to stay with little blocks on the left and blocks on the right. You can also still use your paragraphs paradigm for those that know the paragraphs. Just to make sure that you have an easy conversion from what you did in Drupal 7 to Drupal 9 and not fully change all that content. But also there, if you have any questions, happy to answer those in the Q&A. Every Drupal 7 site, certainly because it lived so long, could be very different and could be set up in a very different way, maybe using penalizers or other stuff. But what you saw here, what you see here, is that we are dragging and dropping things. We stay in the front end. We see what we're doing. We're adding background colors. Maybe I'm also now saying shifting the image from the left to the right, but you can also do this with drag and drop. So lots of things that we did here as a content editor. And if we save this content, we see exactly what we did. So we didn't move away from the front end. Very different from how content today is managed in Drupal 7. Okay, so let's prepare your Drupal 7 site for an upgrade. If you have any idea what you need to do or how do you get started, I know this is not like super interactive, but I'm happy to maybe see your answers in the chat. If you have any idea how to get started, obviously I'm here to give you some help. There's a nice quote that I found, and it says, change everything except your content and content types. I actually initially said your wife and children. Why I use this quote, it's because it came from Lee Kun-hee, former CEO of Samsung. He drove the change and adoption in Samsung, but unfortunately passed away 2 weeks ago. But actually what is written here with content and content types is correct. So it's not that you're actually moving a Drupal 7 site into a Drupal 9 site and do upgrades of functionality. You're actually stripping down your Drupal 7 site. You're keeping the most valuable content or the most valuable thing in there, which is the content and the structure of the content. That's what Drupal is all about. The structure of your content is key. You have so many content types. There's so many field types. So all of that information, that's key. Also, the multilingual part is very important. How you then structure your Drupal 9 site to use that content could be a very different exercise. You can choose to stay at the same level, but you can also choose to change, drive adoption, or adopt change, and maybe look forward into new digital experiences for your end user. What does this mean in practice? There's a module called upgrade status, and yeah, I can show you, but maybe also put that in the Q&A, where you can see, okay, how many modules do I have that have an upgrade path? And I'm going to show you that also in the demo, how that looks like. So let's dive right in. The migrating, what we're going to do, or what I'm going to show you, is an actual Drupal 7 site, as I mentioned, that has many, many languages, has many, many content types, including meta tags with date filters, some custom modules for the types. And these are the commands that I ran in advance before I show you the little demo video of what actually happens during such a migration. The Dropsolid Experience Cloud has a local development solution called Launchpad. And using that tool, I did a couple of commands you can see in the top to get my Drupal 7 site locally and my Drupal 9 site locally. It's quite important to do this test migration on your local machine just to see what happens, and then tweak and do the migration once again once you found some issues that you solved. What is then necessary is that you're actually making sure that the database of the Drupal 7 project is accessible for the Drupal 9 project. So in our case, it means that we're importing the Drupal 7 database from one container into the other so that they can read each other. And then also the public and private files of the Drupal 7 project, we move to an accessible location within the Drupal 9 container. If you use solutions like Lando and didnt, these are similar approaches that you can do. You can also directly go to the live sites and do direct live site access of the Drupal 7 site, but I wouldn't recommend you to do that to avoid any loads of that site. What then needs to happen is that you need to install on your Drupal 9 site. And our Drupal 9 site actually is a full installation of the Dropsolid Rocketship installation profile, which comes with a lot of functionality already, like blog, like contacts, maps, like views and search integrations. I'll explain later. But the site is already functional and not just a plain Drupal 9. So many modules that are in that installation profile have migration support for content that came from Drupal 7. So what we need to do to enable this is to require 3 modules. It's called Migrate Upgrade, the 3.x branch, because they don't have a stable branch yet, Migrate Plus, and Migrate Tools. As soon as we do this, we need to enable a couple of modules. And then what happens then is this little video. The video will show you the user interface of the Migrate. And let me 1 second increase the the quality. So hopefully you can follow along. Okay, so there we go. This is the /upgrade path on the Drupal 9 site, and I'm filling in my credentials of the Drupal 7 database. The presentation will be available later with the videos so you can see in details. What we also do is we tell the interface where are the Drupal 7 files, like the images, available, so we can import that to Drupal 9. We didn't do any custom coding in this exercise. We're just seeing what can we achieve with the installation profile from Dropsolid, which I mentioned is open, and an existing Drupal 7 site. Here you see all the modules that are not available in our installation profile or don't have a migration path for content. Very important that we keep the content part separate from the functional part, because the functional part you will have to rebuild in Drupal 9 because it's just vastly different, unless the same module already existed. Here we actually did a fast forward on the migration, and the reason why I did a fast forward is that it took over 1.5 hours to actually do the migration. Let me pause here for a second. Sorry. What you will see now is that we imported all the content types. All the content was imported in all the languages. You can see that it actually linked the right field types to meta tags or link. You can have many, many more, but this is just an example. What I'll show you now is how it looks like in the front end for specific content. This is not like no custom coding. This is how it looks like in Drupal 7, what you see now. This is a regular node page. And this is actually how it looks like in Drupal 9 without any change that we did on our side. No coding, no, I think all the languages were imported. All the roles are imported. All the users are imported with the right roles. Also, blocks are added. However, blocks are a special case because sometimes this is configuration or content. That depends how you actually structured your Drupal 7 site. So this is already how far you can come with standard Drupal 7 to Drupal 9 migrations without any custom coding. Now, obviously, you're thinking with the interface, this if you're a bit technical, this is not what I would do. Well, you're totally right. This is not what you should do. You should, with Drush or the CLI, actually start this migration because 1.5 hours in your browser, that's not recommended. Yeah. It will go a lot faster. And then for the critics, maybe in the audience, like, well, but that's too easy. Well, obviously, there's things that I didn't tell you. The entire migration needed more than 1 hour. Do not do this in your browser. The multilingual didn't work out of the box. In Drupal 7, there are many ways to do multilingual. For example, creating separate entities or separate nodes, or do entity translation. Custom mapping is necessary because there's no support out of the box for the node translation option. Dropsolid can help you with consultancy if necessary, but there are tutorials out there to do this mapping for you. In the example that I showed, none of my other languages other than English automatically were migrated unless I did some custom mapping into the specific language that was created. If you've worked with Drupal 8 and migrations, this mapping is exactly the same, and you should be able to find your way in there pretty quickly. Everything is configuration. Usually you won't need any coding, as in no PHP coding. They're YAML files. Many modules are not supported, but you can make the assessment yourself. So you saw in the video, there was a list of Drupal 7 modules that were not supported in the Drupal 9 site. If you think there is actual data in one of those modules that you really want, you can create a custom migration. What I actually suggest is that you disable all the functionality that you don't need in your local Drupal 7 site, strip it down to the bare minimum for content purposes, use that as your source and see what modules are left that where you need to write a migration path for. In that way, you won't end up, like in my example, with 133 modules that are not supported, but maybe only with 3 or 4 or 5. And if you're lucky, either there is already a patch in the issue queue on Drupal.org with the migration path, because there's a lot of people that are going through this journey, or you need to write the mapping yourself. But luckily, that doesn't take too much of your time. Most of the time might go into creating the Drupal 9 site differently from all the lessons that you learned in the past with your Drupal 7 site. Okay. I'll answer the questions in a bit, Vladimir, about the migrate modules. And also, after I'll answer your question. You can skip directly to best practices. So there's a Dropsolid Rocketship Drupal 9 installation profile available on Drupal.org on Dropsolid_Rocketship. The Drupal 9 version will ship out soon, and obviously has support for many of those migration paths. Everything that we do out in the open, so issues can either be filed in the issue queue, or questions can be sent to our company, but then we obviously engage into a professional relationship. What does the Dropsolid Rocketship Drupal 9 installation profile offer? It offers best practices for configuration, import and exports with different environments on hosting platforms like the Dropsolid Experience Cloud, but also Pantheon or Acquia. It offers performance with easy scaling up of all the possible views that are in there, because all the views are built in Search API, so you can switch them easily to more performing backends like Solr or Elasticsearch. We build all our websites, and with all, I mean, we have more than 2,000 websites on the platform with Rocketship as a start for small to medium to large installations. It was built to really offer flexibility to specific cases. It also integrates with components like Dropsolid personalization and marketing automation. There's other webinars from Dropsolid that talk about that. And also it has security optimizations built in, like specific headers to avoid cross-site scripting, which are not available out of the box from Drupal 9 due to more compatibility reasons that Drupal 9 has. But again, it's free to take a look at how we solve this if you have your own installation profile. Now, if all of this sounds a lot of work, it's because it is. It's like we, as Dropsolid, made it easier using the installation profile and making sure that you have a fully functional site with supported modules out there in Drupal 9. But there's also the extended support program that gives you less stress at time until November 25. And we can also guide you in that upgrade journey. We can take your time. We can take time with you to go into a future-proof story with the Dropsolid Experience Cloud, or whichever direction you'd like to go. We have time until 25 if you partner with us. There's also the exclusive partnership, and you can find this with the link at the bottom left from Drupal.org, where you can find our logo. It's an official contract, so it means that we officially are embedded in the security team of the Drupal Association to receive and create patches for Drupal 7 until 25. This is a commitment that we made together, so we can support whoever cannot do the migration into or by 22. Okay, so the conclusion, think before you act. I'm happy to see in the poll that most of you want to migrate by 21. Happy to start building together to be ready by 22. Use what we put online and see what we did there. But if you're not ready yet, we have your back until 25 with Drupal 7. So maybe together we can embrace the opportunity to improve your digital customer experience, or just prepare you for that journey and take a bit longer. So with that, we have 30 minutes that are filled in, and I'm happy to take a bunch of questions, and I see there's a couple of them. I'll go from the top to bottom, unless Elaine, you have other suggestions.
My suggestion would indeed be to just go through the questions that are in the chat. And I think the first question was about how to migrate only your content from version 7 to version 9. It was posted very early in the webinar. I think you had some more context on that subject already later. But maybe there's a bit more detail that you can give right now, Nick.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's a lot easier to strip down your Drupal 7 site to remove all the things that you don't want. So if you have settings of modules that you don't want to migrate, or maybe you can disable those modules. If the modules do have specific content, you can actually in Drush exclude these modules for migration, or generate the migration scenario that it would do in the YAML files, and then change those and execute them manually. So there's a lot of things that you can actually manage yourself if you go in different steps, and Drush allows you to do this. It actually also goes into the question of Vladimir. Obviously, it could be done through Drush, and I think I mentioned that here. So there is a Drush migrate upgrade command. This command is not available if you don't install the migrate modules. The migrate modules that I mentioned are here: migrate upgrade, migrate plus, and migrate tools. The names that you see here to enable these tools are actually embedded in here. And migrate Drupal is actually part of Drupal 9. This module is the UI that you saw in the video. So the /migrate path, that's actually available out of the box with Drupal 9. So hopefully that answers Arthur's and Vladimir's question. I'll move into the question of Dieter while we wait for their answer. Yeah. And then Dieter, you're talking about security patches for Drupal 7 core. Yes and no. We're actually talking about the whole ecosystem. If the security or if there is actually a breach in security reported, only the extended security partners will be informed and then have time to create those patches also for the modules in Drupal 7, and then see if they can publish that into the platforms that they have or maintain. Other partners include, for example, Tag1, Acquia. I think Pantheon is also a partner. And then there's one more, but I don't remember the name. So it's more than just Drupal 7 core. It's also the modules, as long as obviously it's reported. There is also a security reporter or a security investigator from Dropsolid that is actively engaged from 22 until 25, have time to do only this, only Drupal 7, the whole ecosystem, and Drupal 7 core. So hopefully, Dieter, that answers your question. Perfect. I don't see any other questions. So hopefully that was clear.
We just didn't get any response from Arthur whether his question was answered, but I hope yes. So if there is no other questions, I think we can conclude the session here, Nick. Thank you very much for having us. And to the audience, thank you very much for joining. If there would be any questions afterwards, I'm sure you can find Nick or Dropsolid via our website.
I'm also accessible through the Drupal Slack channel at the handle Nick_VH. We'll be attending Drupal Jam, speaking at DrupalCon, which is a virtual event. But if we are able to get together again, I'm sure I'm also present at the physical meetups that we have in Europe. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.